Welcome to episode 9 of the Di Pietro Partners Podcast. I'm Kevin from Borealis Digital Marketing. Most healthcare providers spend years building a successful practice, but far fewer spend time thinking about what happens when it's time to buy, expand, or eventually sell the business. And today, I'm joined by healthcare attorney David Di Pietro to discuss what healthcare providers need to know when buying or selling a medical practice. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, preparing a medical practice for sale, what something that buyers look for? Give us some insights into that.
I guess it depends on who you're selling to, right? Are you retiring and selling to a young doctor, or are you selling to a corporate entity? It seems nowadays the trend is people are selling to big corporatization of healthcare, and big corporations are buying healthcare practices. So, it's a transition. So I guess the biggest issue is are you going to keep working for the company when you sell it? Because usually they want the physician that knows the patients to transition
Mm-hmm.
over for a period of time. When you've been in practice by yourself or independent for years, how's it going to be having a partner or working for a corporation again? And it can be somewhat of a different shock, but there is real value in selling your medical practice and shouldn't give something like that away.
That's a good point of transitional period. In your experience, does the doctor typically continue working, not, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
Typically, because the patients, they're not, if all of a sudden your doctor's gone and you don't know why, the patients aren't going to necessarily stay. So they
Mm-hmm.
have to transition the new doctors in with the current physicians. So usually it's a 1 to 3 year transition.
I could see that. I know my dental practice recently sold to private equity. And long story short, I ended up finding a new practice because I didn't like some of the changes. So I think that's a good point that you touched on.
Right. That's what happens.
And what determines the value of the medical practice? Is it the bottom line, or what are some?
It's interesting because it's usually what's called an EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. But it's usually if you'll need a healthcare advisor or evaluator to help you put a value. So what many of these practices have been selling is for an EBITDA is basically what's the bottom line, like what does the company make, but the business make, and usually they're selling between 3-7 times the EBITDA. So if your business is making $500,000 a year, selling your medical practice for 1.5-3 million dollars is not unreasonable.
And are there some common deal killers associated with these healthcare transactions or sales of medical practices?
Yeah, it usually has to do with how long the physician that is selling is going to stick around and what they're going to be, what they have to do in order to maintain the sales. So those tend to be deal killers. Other deal killers could be is your staff and other physicians that maybe work for you going to transition over to the new corporation? What does your managed care contracts look like? Are they transferable? If they're not transferable, that could be a deal killer. So the devil's in the details on what can make a deal go forward or not.
That makes sense. And what about some healthcare specific legal issues in certain verticals? Like, for example, we talked about dental offices and medical practices, but there's also a lot of healthcare specific businesses too. It can be, hospice, or there's a lot of different verticals. So if you want to talk about specific legal issues, or if a specific area is more complex than other areas, I'd love to hear your insight.
Yeah, the biggest issue really is indemnification. Like if I sell you my medical practice, what happens if a malpractice claim comes up? Who's going to handle that and how's that going to
Mm.
be handled? Or other claims that arise that are unknown at the time. So it's going to be who indemnifies who and for how long. And because there's going to be some unknown risks associated with taking over any business. So that could be a big issue that could pop up. So you got to make sure you have the proper insurance and indemnification clauses, make sure you're covered for those.
I think that's a good point. That would be a bad surprise to suddenly be hit with a medical malpractice suit. And I imagine this has to do with some due diligence as well. Due diligence would be, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely got to do due diligence on making sure There's no known claims, but sometimes claims come out of nowhere. So
Mhm.
because there's a 2-year statute of limitations, like in Florida. So there's a look back period. You could say you didn't even realize you were going to get named in a case, and all of a sudden you get named. And then there's other kinds of cases. You could have employment law type lawsuits. You could have other HIPAA violation lawsuits. So the due diligence is important, but even the best due diligence is not going to cover everything and that's unknown.
Sounds like there's a lot of potential pitfalls, specifically with healthcare related business. On that note, what are some of the biggest mistakes that practice owners can make when it comes to selling or buying a healthcare practice?
They don't get a lawyer. Or one side has a lawyer and the other side doesn't. You got to really negotiate, because when you negotiate a contract, you don't negotiate the good times. You negotiate what happens in the bad times. So that's what's the most important, is have a lawyer or an advocate on your side to make sure if something goes bad, what is the best landing spot for you? What's the best landing zone so that you're not totally hurt in the deal financially?
And how does a healthcare transaction lawyer assist healthcare practices in these transactions?
From everything from soup to nuts. So from drafting the asset purchase or stock purchase agreement to the due diligence to making sure all the healthcare compliance is done, make sure all the licenses are transferred, make sure any employment agreements are executed in a favorable manner. So everything from A to Z is what a healthcare lawyer would do.
And I imagine it varies, but how long does this process usually take when it comes to acquisitions?
Months. I would say on average that from the time you enter into a memorandum of understanding or LOI, it's probably on average probably 3 months to sell a practice, three to 6 months.
You mentioned some of the biggest mistakes that practice owners make. I would think that you don't even that you're almost required to have a lawyer, but they can actually attempt it themselves.
Many doctors tend to think they don't need a lawyer, and they do it themselves. So the buyer will have their own lawyer and their own draft agreements and be a little more sophisticated. And then the doctor doesn't think a lawyer for them would provide any value, and then problems can happen.
Appreciate your time, David, and your insight on this topic.
Thanks,
It's
Kevin.
Thanks. Until next time.